three key receiving principles for developing catchers. So there's undoubtedly a lot of debate with receiving styles and mostly how aggressive catchers are with their receiving styles. You know, this is a debate that will hopefully be put to rest soon. You'll have some of the old school guys on Instagram saying, you know, too much glove movement, or, you know, kind of just wanting to teach young catchers the set it and forget it method. The truth of the matter is, you know, if you turn on TV and you see a college guy, or you see every single big league guy that is utilizing these drastic glove movements and these aggressive receiving styles, you know, if the highest level guys are choosing to use this in their receiving, it's probably not wrong. The game has changed. The game will continue to change. Guys have better command. They're throwing with more velocity at the bottom of the zone. Their breaking pitches are more sharp, meaning they're trying to clip the edge of a corner and have a breaking pitch dive away from the zone to prevent this guy from hitting that pitch, right? So the old school method of set it and forget it, as the game gets faster and the game gets harder, you know, this method is going to end up costing us strikes at the bottom of the zone as the game gets faster and as we progress to higher levels in our career. So where this conversation becomes kind of nuanced is, okay, the aggressive receiving style is here to stay. That's not going anywhere. Guys are going to continue to utilize this, especially if it's shown to increase called strike percentages. So if you yourself are a developing catcher that wants to play at the next level, or you're the parent of a young catcher that wants to play at the next level, it's important to at least understand why these top level catchers are receiving the way that they do, even if your young catcher may not necessarily be ready to implement it just yet. There's not simply one answer as to correct receiving styles. We have to take into account level of play, command of pitchers, velocity of pitchers, you know, a catcher's experience behind the plate, their overall awareness of their abilities, and simply just their amount of reps that they've put into mastering this craft. You watch a really good catcher receive, it's like artwork. As cringy as that might sound, the way that their glove works comes through a lot of refinement, a lot of practice, a lot of repetition of understanding what they're capable of. What do these high-level catchers have on your young catcher that he may not have just yet? And basically those are physicality, right? So his build, his makeup, how strong he is, how flexible he is, all of that stuff. And then the top two are repetition and experience. It goes without saying, a 12U catcher or a 13U catcher or a 14U catcher has way less experience than a kid who's 18, 19, 20, a big league guy who's 32 years old. If you compare a 32-year-old big leaguer to a 12-year-old, this 32-year-old big leaguer was in minor league ball when this kid was born, right? This guy's got 12 years of reps on this kid. So chances are that 12-year-old catcher, 13-year-old catcher should not necessarily be trying to replicate exactly what they see being done at the highest levels until they understand what are the mechanics of receiving, what allows these guys to build up to these points. And once we can get really good at the fundamentals of receiving, the principles of receiving, then as we progress, as we continue to get better, as we continue to refine this art of receiving, we can get a little more aggressive. We can start to do things that maybe we weren't previously ready to do. Of course, that begs the question, what are the fundamentals? What are the principles of receiving that your young catcher needs to understand, or you as a young catcher need to understand to not only, one, be able to receive effectively and efficiently and consistently at the level that you're at, but also be setting yourself up for more advanced receiving style and win the job at higher levels of competition. The first receiving principle that I've identified to not only be beneficial for my own receiving and in my own career, but now with the catchers that I'm working with that have these same goals of playing at the next level. These are the principles that we work on and help kind of set the stage for more advanced receiving techniques later on in their career. So again, the first principle is simply the idea of staying underneath the ball for as long as I possibly can. One of the habits that a developing catcher will get in, and this is natural human instinct, but if something is flying at us, no matter how much gear we have on, our natural instinct is protect the face. So if a kid never consciously understands that this is what they're trying to do, a lot of times they end up above the ball in an effort to protect themselves, and then they end up working away from the zone. And as pitches get sharper, as velocity increases, this motion away from the zone is going to end up costing us strikes The idea of staying underneath the ball for as long as we possibly can. This can be achieved through drill work where you're forcing this to stay here until the catcher actually realizes where this ball is going, and then the only motion is back up towards the zone. The second key receiving principle that every young catcher needs to understand, now that they understand how to actually keep their glove underneath the zone, underneath the path of the baseball, the second thing that we start to grasp is the idea of getting behind the pitch as soon as we can. The best way for a young catcher to understand this concept is you need at least a rudimentary understanding of pitch design. So when I say pitch design, that's essentially the path that the baseball follows from the time it leaves our pitcher's hand until it hits our glove. Fastball is going to stay straight. A right-handed changeup is going to fade into our glove side. A breaking pitch is going to come across the zone on this side of our body. These pitches are following different lines and different designs through the zone. So if you can have a rudimentary understanding of pitch design, now you can start to understand, okay, where is that pitch going based on my pitcher, based on his tendencies, based on the count. Now that I can understand, hey, where is that pitch going? I can start to do some more things on my end to, one, anticipate and expect where the ball is going to go, but also some slight mechanisms to cheat our receiving without tipping pitches. If I can understand where that ball is going to go, and I can understand that I need to stay underneath the flight of the ball for as long as I can, now my first move can become getting behind a breaking pitch this way, or if I have a two-seam coming in on my glove, my first move is now getting inside of it to give me more room to work back towards the zone. And that will lead us into the third key receiving principle or mechanic for young catchers to understand and grasp and start to work into their receiving work. Number one, I need to stay underneath the ball for as long as I can. Number two, I need to get behind the path of the pitch as early as I can. Again, kind of going back to our understanding of pitch design, if you were to draw an imaginary line behind the path of the baseball, what line would that ball follow through the zone? Fastball is going to stay straight. A right-handed changeup is going to fade into my glove side. A breaking pitch is going to slide across the plate from a right-handed pitcher. So if I can understand the line that this ball is going to follow through the zone, and I'm doing a good job of staying underneath it, getting behind it, now the last step to kind of put the pin in my receiving is now I can start to ride this line for as long as possible. I'm underneath it, I'm behind it, and then I ride the line for as long as I can. Being able to get behind the ball and ride the line longer is just going to afford us more margin for error. If I don't do a good job of respecting my lines and I'm trying to catch a breaking pitch while moving away from my body, if that pitch slides an extra 2 inches more than I anticipated, I'm gonna end up really pushing this ball out of the zone. But if I'm doing a good job of getting behind it soon and staying on it a long time, if that pitch slides a little bit farther than I thought, it's much easier for me to just go a little farther and then work back towards the zone as opposed to trying to follow the path that that ball is going. So we wanna match the line that that ball is following in our receiving, and this is really that extra step that makes a guy's receiving look really clean. If they're following their lines very efficiently, their receiving typically looks pretty good. It's the guys that don't respect their lines that, you know, you can kind of tell are moving the ball away from the zone and ultimately sacrificing strikes on the edge of the zone from the umpire's perspective. What you ultimately need to walk away from this video with an understanding of is what are the mechanics or the principles that either you as a developing catcher or the parent of a developing catcher need to make sure that your kid or you yourself have a firm grasp on in order to continue advancing to higher levels of competition and being able to handle that level of competition. You want to make sure you're setting yourself a good foundational base to continue progressing and continue refining your skills behind the plate. Number one, staying underneath the ball for as long as we can. Number two is getting behind the path of the pitch as early as we can. And number three is going to be staying on the line of the pitch. So trying to match it as exactly as we can for as long as we can. All of this can be practiced and done through drill work where you're forcing these certain movements or ideas to really take hold for a catcher. Simple drills where you're keeping the glove on the ground, you know, to start the drill. Drills where you're exaggerating a cheat on a different type of pitch, and then simple drills that work on the end of the sequence in terms of actually finishing a pitch to allow a guy to understand how to properly snap the wrist and work through that line. These are all drills that I work on with my guys, and if it's something you want to explore further, have drills and programs that work on exactly these concepts. Inside of my school community, I have receiving programs, I have blocking programs, I have drills that pretty much work exclusively on these concepts to help catchers set a base and set a foundation for continued development later on in their career. career. So if that's something that interests you, there's a 7-day free trial. You can check it out. I'll have it linked in the bio of this video. Check out my Instagram, you know, make sure to follow along.